Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we're joined by Aaron Peters, Implementation and Product Manager, and Daniel Hamadeh, SQL Developer, both of Phoenix Data Systems. Webinar Wednesday would like to extend a big thank you to today's sponsor, Phoenix Data Systems. Phoenix is committed to offering the finest software, service, and support available in the industry. Their software has evolved by listening to and collaborating with customers. Their current platform, AIMS 3, provides user and with a powerful CMMS tool capable of flexible reporting, endless integrations, and lots of user-defined automation to streamline workflows and make any HTM department run more efficiently. For more information, we do encourage our attendees to visit their website. It's goaims.com. Quick reminder before we get started with the webinar that registration is open for the next MD Expo. Those dates are October 11 through 13 of 2022, and the MD Expo SoCal will be nestled in the Temecula Valley at the Pechanga Casino and Resort. All hospital and healthcare facility employees, active military, and students can attend this 3-day conference for free by using a VIP code. You can find details online at mdexposhow.com. At the end of today's presentation, we will wrap up with a live Q&A as always. I want to encourage attendees as you're listening to the presentation today, go ahead and submit your question at any time. You can use the question feature on your webinar dashboard, or if needed, you're welcome to chat it to the organizer's attention. Today's webinar is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. This survey will be emailed to you 1 hour after the completion of the webinar. You must complete the survey to get the CE certificate, and you'll be able to download that certificate directly from your computer. If you have any questions or challenges, you're welcome to email us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. All right, as I mentioned earlier, Aaron Peters and Daniel Hamadeh will showcase a well-executed CMMS conversion and implementation. This conversation will focus on keys to success, such as mapping data, cleaning data, and optimizing workflows by understanding how the new CMMS operates. The presenters will take a deep dive into recent conversions and implementation of the AIMS 3 CMMS platform. Aaron, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jamie. So obviously this isn't probably the group that you expected when you first signed up for this particular webinar. We did have a medical emergency that took out Matthew, so Daniel and I kind of stepped in and took over the webinar, and we will present the data to you, hopefully just as well as Matthew would have. I was hoping to give those of you that keep coming back to these a break from having to listen to me for an hour, but here we are. So my name is Aaron Peters. I'm the Product and Implementation Manager here at Phoenix. I've been with the company over 17 years now in many, many different roles, but implementations and conversions, I've been leading those now for more than a dozen years. So it's still my specialty, regardless of what else I might be good at doing here. Daniel?
Hi, my name's Daniel Hamadeh. I'm the conversion specialist here at Phoenix Data Systems. I've been here just over a year, but I am one of the main people who will take your data and map it into our system so that you can use it.
All right. So today we are going to look at, first of all, why implementation is so important. What's so important about having a successful implementation? And then we're going to look at just a high-level overview. I don't want to bore you with details. Obviously, we could walk through a whole implementation plan. It would be very boring. But just from a high level, what does a good plan look like? And then we're going to talk about some differentiators. What makes us different from others out there? What do we do better? What's unique about our plan and how we involve customers with it? That'll be the bulk of what we look at today. And then at the end, of course, we'll do a Q&A as always. So what is a successful implementation? It is more than just a conversion. Customers tend to focus on the conversion piece. That's what makes everyone nervous, because most people have had bad experiences here in the past. That doesn't change the fact, however, that other things are equally as important. You need good training. Your data needs to be cleaned up. You need to learn the new software, maybe adjust your workflows, new reporting options. With a new system comes new opportunities. So it's more than just getting the data from this field to this field. That's certainly an important piece, and we spend a lot of time working on that, but that is a small subset of what we do here for a successful implementation. The training piece, we'll talk about this in a little more detail later, but it's not just go live training. You know, if we came on site right at go live and tried to teach everyone everything, it wouldn't work. You'd be spraying a fire hose into a bucket. Some of it'll stick, a lot of it'll just bounce out. So we train you slowly throughout the process, what you need to know for each phase of the project. So then you have a chance to absorb it and put it into practice and into motion, and it helps stick better. And then come go live, you still get your full go live training, but it's not just all dumped on you all at once. And then data cleanup. No offense to anyone on the call, you could probably use some data cleanup. I don't think many people on the call would argue with it's a huge problem in the industry in general, is the quality of data. So how can we help with that? A successful implementation is going to not only just point it out, but also help you clean it up. And Daniel's going to get into that later because it's one of his specialties. And then helping you get familiar with the new software, that just kind of interrelates everything, but it also brings the workflow piece in. What pieces of your workflow are going to work very well with your new software and which ones maybe need to be adapted because there's better ways of doing it. All right, to talk about the high-level implementation plan, again, I don't want to bore you too much. I won't spend too much time here, but here at Phoenix, we break this into phases: preparation, data gathering, down the list. I'm going to go through just a little bit of what's covered in each phase. Obviously, there's a whole huge plan behind this with documentation and everything, and we'll actually see a little bit of, or talk about a little bit of that throughout the rest of this. But in the preparation phase, that's where we do our kickoffs. So we want to meet your team, let you meet ours, both your admin team for your department and also your IT team. We need to meet them. They have duties, whether we host you or not, doesn't matter. There's still things that they need to be involved with, and we want to meet them early on and start to set those expectations and timings as early as possible. Also, during the preparation phase, we do your installation. Doesn't matter whether we host you in Azure, we have shiny new Azure servers, Microsoft Azure, that we host people on, or whether you're on premise. We can do both, but we want to get that install done as soon as possible. If there's any IT problems, if there's connection issues, if you need a server, whatever it might be, we start tackling that from day one. And then lastly, we start your training. That's right. During the preparation phase, we start overview training with your admin team. Because over the next two phases, there are going to be things that we're going to ask you to look at in the software. You need to verify data. You need to start being familiar with the system, at least the admin team. Usually it's only a couple people. Next, the data gathering phase. This is where a lot of good work is done. This is where I think we shine a little bit. So one of the first major things we do in this section is start learning your workflows. We want to know what you do today, whether you have them written out, whether we need to adjust them. These are all things that we can do, but only if we learn what you do. So we ask a lot of questions. We try to get through how you enter equipment, how you do your scheduling, do you do assignments, all the different things regarding your workflows throughout your system. We want to start learning those early on. Then we do some data cleanup. It starts that early. Even before the conversion, we start data cleanup. Daniel's going to talk about that in a little bit. We do a learn your system meeting. Daniel's going to talk about that as well, but essentially we want to know how you use your current CMMS system. There's a lot of benefits to us seeing how you use it today that he will talk about later. The overview training continues in this phase. Again, slow and steady. We want to train you up slowly, and we just do these trainings throughout the entire process. Then of course the conversion piece of it. This isn't necessarily a phase. It kind of overlaps a lot of other ones as well, but it's ongoing. It's not just one conversion and then go live. It's as many as you need. If we need to run it 3 or 4 times, we'll run it 3 or 4 times. More training is done here because we also do data validation here. We need you to verify that the data has been converted properly. In order to do that, you're going to be looking in AIMS, so you better be familiar with AIMS to know what you need to click on and look at to make sure the data is over there. So that's the conversion phase. And again, that's just on repeat till it's ready. Integrations, this is obviously an optional phase. Not everyone does any integrations or interfaces, but this is something we need to start early in the process as well because they take time. It's us, it's you, it's another vendor typically. So we have all these meetings, we have to do data mappings and then design it and build it and test it. They just take time to do them right. So anyone that's been involved in them, this isn't a week-long process. It's usually more than a month-long process. So it's kind of an extra phase. Again, it overlaps others, but and it's not always needed. Next, we do a dress rehearsal. We treat this like go live. This is going to get timing figured out. It's going to make sure that everyone has access to FTP sites, transfer databases, and all of that. So it's just treated like go live. We get a fresh copy of the database. We do the conversion. We validate the data again. Do any sort of final setups we need in the software that can transfer over during go live. And then again, more training. Between dress rehearsal and go live, there's go, no go. It's not really a phase, it's just a meeting, but we want to make sure that everyone signs off on this before we decide to go live. So good project management, go no go meeting, final reviews of everything. We make a decision, verify go live dates and all of that. And then of course, go live is the dress rehearsal, but for real. So we get fresh copy, conversion, on-site training or virtual, whichever you decide to use. Do your final data validation, final setup, and then get you live. And then post go live is potentially the most important step. Once you're live, we don't abandon you. So post go live, we do eventually try to get project sign off, but only once everyone's comfortable and the system's working very well for you. And then we do an official transition to technical support. So you will be transferred and have a meeting with a tech support person who's going to be your primary. You can call and talk to anybody, but we want to give you to a primary. We bring them up to speed on you and any issues you have or unique workflows so that they're more familiar with you and your needs. And then most importantly, we will cover this later, we do a lessons learned. Very, very critical to our process. Now, before anyone asks, or if you've asked already, here's your answer. A typical implementation for kind of a mid-sized customer is anywhere between 90 and 120 days typically. May take more, may take less. If there's a lot of interfaces, it's going to take more. If there's no interfaces or a small system, it could take less. And then if you're an absolutely massive, hospital system that spans states and you have 100 facilities, it can take up to a year, to be honest. That is still going to depend on things like interfaces and other. But typically 3 to 4 months is a pretty standard time frame for us to get a customer live with everything included I just mentioned. And then the fastest we've ever done was 3 weeks. We got a brand new customer live in 3 weeks, full on-site training, conversion, whole 9 yards. Took them 3 weeks to get them live. Their old site was shut down. They had no access to it. We got them live as quickly as humanly possible. So we can go faster if needed. We don't like to sacrifice quality for speed, however. So hopefully that part wasn't too boring, but that's what a typical implementation, in my opinion, looks like. It's a lot of steps, it's a lot of meetings, it's worth it in the end. So Daniel.
Yes.
What do you think are the biggest differentiators between what we do and what our competitors do?
The first one would be involving the customer in the process heavily. Usually with these conversions, communication is key. So that would be the first one. Understanding customer workflows. We need to know how your system works, what exactly you use it for. That would be number 2. Being able to clean up your data well. We don't want redundant data in there. We want your data to have a good amount of integrity. Another one would be the ongoing training that you talked about. we're training you constantly to use the AIMS system so that by the end of it, you're, pros. The conversion process itself is another step. And then you have the post go live cleanup, which, we as a team will still be there for you even after we're done converting your data. And then, like you said, lessons learned is probably the next one. And we can go into detail about that shortly.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so let's look at each one of these individually now and help explain what we do and why it's important.
Okay. So for the first one, involving the customer in the process, you guys know your process the best. We're here to, we're going to need your training really to teach us like how you use your system. We have learn your system meetings where we sit down and we, as a team, and we look inside your system. It's a time for you to show us exactly what you do, and this helps us map the data to your system or to our system much better. This can take place over 1 or 2 meetings. We could have bi-weekly, weekly discussions of your data and the processes. So, again, communication is the main thing here. And you get to see over time how we transfer the data into our system and how it looks. We try to be as available as possible. You can call it or email us anytime, and I'll, we'll pick up and help you.
Yeah, I know there's several of us that answer emails and calls all hours of the night. So it's not demanded by anyone that works here. We just like what we do. So we tend to answer anytime we see it come in. All right, I'll jump in here and talk about workflows for a minute. So how can we help with workflows? So like I said, we have workflow meetings. In these meetings, we're going to ask you 100 questions about the different things that you do. And not just equipment and PM schedules and work orders. We ask about how you manage parts, what your purchasing processes are, contracts, what type of information do you track on those? How many times do you look for a piece of equipment before you mark it lost or retired or whatever your process is there? We get very, very detailed and very granular. As he mentioned, this can help us with training, because if we know how you use it, you're probably going to keep using it roughly that same way. So we don't want to teach you, maybe it's a little bit not standard to what a normal workflow would be. We want to make sure we don't teach your guys the wrong stuff. So we'll adjust the training to meet your workflows. Even the setup of the database of the software, which includes the conversion, might change based on your workflows. If you do something a certain way, we have tools in AIMS that allow you to change the functionality with a checkbox or with our pretty amazing automation tool. So if we can help you get that set up from day one, it's just going to work better for you out of the box. And then lastly, technical support. Again, they need to know what you guys do. What's different about how you guys function than others? So then when you call in with a question, they're not so caught off guard of, oh, you do it this way. They'll have that documentation in that transition to tech support document that I talked about. They have that information at their disposal from day one. And then lastly, we can take all of that and turn it into written workflows. Something we noticed early on when we started doing all this workflow stuff was not everyone has their processes written out. Now, your guys know what to do, of course. However, if you have someone new that's hired in, he or she may not know how to do that, and so they need to be trained. I know you guys know how to train them, but it's always better if they have something to reference it off of. So we do provide written workflows. It's a template. We'll write out your workflows in there, and then we make adjustments based on how our software works and recommend those in a nice green shading, so you can see what we've recommend for process changes. And of course, you can approve those or not. So we can, if you would like, provide those written workflows back to you at the end of this whole process. It's one of the deliverables around Go Live. So Daniel, what is covered under the phrase data cleanup?
Well, data cleanup is a constant process that we have during the entire implementation and conversion. It starts right at the beginning. So as an example, we start with your data managers. So equipment status, work order types, failure codes. A lot of times there are redundant or duplicate data that can fall under there. And these are important because this is the building blocks of all of your data. So as an example, you could have a bad and poor equipment status. Well, you don't need both of those. So we merge those, or we figured out ways to change them into something different so that you don't have all of this extra information in your system that you don't need. Again, this is all about communication. We will have constant calls back and forth. We'll send you, what I like to do usually is I take all of your data managers, put it into a sheet, order it, and we go back and forth and just say, hey, you have this, you have extra stuff of this, and then we clean it up for you. This helps, again, increase the integrity of your data, reduce, duplicates, and it just makes your data just a lot more clean overall. Yeah.
All right. Ongoing training was another one. So exactly what is included in training? So as you saw at the beginning, or you heard anyways, training is included in almost every phase of the process. We train you constantly throughout. There's lots of reasons for this. The main ones being, if we, like I said before, if we waited till go live, you really wouldn't absorb it all. It's a big system. We've been in business for 38 years. So the software does a lot of different things, and no one person can absorb it in a week of on-site training. So we want to have you learn the functions as you need them. Daniel mentioned, after a conversion, we do data validation meetings, which he's going to talk about in detail, but those cover different things as we go through them. So if the first data validation meeting isn't going to cover your purchasing section, you don't need to know that yet. So we'll focus your training on what's coming up in the next section. And that gives you time to learn it, absorb it, and understand it before we move on. And the best thing about this is free. This is just part of what we do here in an implementation. This does not take away from your go live training. There's no extra cost for this. It just happens. So Daniel, this is what you do. Let's talk about the conversion process here.
Okay, so the AIMS3 tool is a proprietary conversion tool, and that allows us to convert your data very quickly, even if it's on site. So we can even come over to wherever you are and do the conversion there. And this can be a good thing because, one, it helps speed up the conversion. Everyone, both sides of the team are hyper-focused on it, et cetera. So if that's needed, that's a possibility as well. Another thing, we have also meetings that we have, again, daily, weekly meetings, not just with you guys, but also internal, discussing, what needs to get done, where we are on the projects, what will be done, etc. We also have data validations. So after I do any conversion for you guys, because sometimes we have multiple ones, so we usually have multiple ones. It's a time where we all both teams get together. We put the data on a test site, and you guys get to look at it, play with it, tell us if anything is wrong with the data or if there's stuff missing, whatever needs to be fixed, and then we redo it over again and again until we get it right.
So Daniel, let me jump in here. I have a really good example of this. So everything he just said, the conversions, the meetings, and the data validation. So he mentioned the possibility of coming on site. So the first one of these we did very many years ago was with somebody named Krishna. He still works for us. He's kind of taken over more of the management side of implementations instead of conversions. But he and I went on site out in Missouri, and in a week, using our tool that we created, we were able to run a conversion we had never run before and review it with the customer 3 times over 4.5 days. So even if we've never seen your database before, we can come on site, do some mappings with you in the morning, and then we go back in the afternoon and the following day, and we write and run the conversion. That's how fast we can do it with this tool. And then we went back, reviewed it, did some cleanup back and forth a couple more times over the next few days. But we did what is essentially weeks worth of conversions and meetings and data validations in 4.5 business days. And we really only took about maybe 2.5 days of the customer's time. The rest of that, we were back at the hotel working on the conversion stuff. So it really can speed up a process. And since we're on site, we can cover a lot more in a couple hours than we can on a phone call in a couple of hours. So it's a really good, interesting process. Costs a little bit more because you got to pay for our travel and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it can really be worth it if speed is a necessary thing. All right, keep going, Daniel.
All right. So that brings us to database quality. The AIMS-3 database is a very well organized database. It prevents data redundancy, so you won't have duplicate information in there. It keeps it clean, which is pretty common that I see with some other databases that I've gotten. And this allows for the system to run a lot quicker and smoother overall. For example, you can have reports. Reports will be ran quicker. You can have custom reports made, and they shouldn't take very long to run at all. Those are just some simple examples. And then, the quantity of data converted is, we get all of it in. All of it will always be converted. Every field column in your database will be moved into the AIMS-3 system. If there are user-defined fields that you have that we don't initially have in our system, we can bring them over. We can add them in, and everything will be converted.
Yep, that's a really good point. It's a problem that we've seen starting to creep up in the industry is not everyone's converting all of the data. Of course, if you don't want us to, we don't have to. There are certain people that say, only give me 10 years of history or whatever. And of course, we have that option, but it's never our initial intent to cut out any data in a conversion process unless directed by a customer. That's a very important point. All right. The next piece of this is also what you do. How do we help support customers after go live?
So after a conversion is done and after the go live is all set and good, for 2 weeks after, I am still yours. And any issues that you have will be directed towards me and the team, and we will help you through any problems that you have, any issues with the data, any new problems popping up. If we're missing any stuff, if we find out later on that we're missing any information, you just immediately let us know, and we're there to help you. You would be our number one focus for the next 2 weeks after a go live.
All right, yeah, and then I mentioned transition to technical support a couple times. That's of course part of this. We give you a dedicated support person. It's a whole document we fill out and pass on to them. Gives them your contact information, any issues that we had throughout the conversion and implementation process, and again, any workflows that you may do differently, because everyone works a little bit differently. So if you have something really out of the ordinary, that's also passed on to them. It's done in a meeting with you. So you're introduced. It's going to be Scott, Bill, Laura, one of the people we have over in tech support. You're going to be introduced to them on the phone. We're going to go through this with you and them, so you have a chance to expand on anything or anything we may have missed in there, and just get to meet them before we hand you off to them away from the implementation team. But I think it's really good that we handle it with implementations for the first couple weeks, because that's when data issues creep up. There's a field that you missed, maybe a field we missed in the conversion and we didn't catch during testing, or just we missed, you forgot to tell us about a checkbox because it's only used on, one equipment type or whatever. So those things happen all the time, and we will help you through those and get those all cleaned up. No nickel and diming. We take care of all of that. Everything we've said so far is a standard implementation process. There's no additional fees, no hidden costs, no nothing. So everything is just upfront, and we take care of you. I've kind of joked with my boss, who happens to be the CEO, so it's an appropriate joke, and said, I truly don't care if we lose a little bit of money on implementations as long as the customer ends up happy. So my goal is to keep you happy and get you live and the system working the best for you from day one. To that end, how do we keep improving this process? We're not done. This isn't the world's best implementation. I think it's very good. We've improved it over the years. If there's anyone on here that went live with us over the past 12 years or so, some of these things are probably sound pretty new to you. They all were born from what we do at the end, which is lessons learned. So lessons learned, we started a long time ago. We do it with almost every customer. There are certain reasons we can't do it with some, but we really try to get to everybody as quickly as possible after go live so you don't forget too much of what went on. But the goal is, of course, continuous improvement. There is no aspect of what we do that we don't try to include and improve. All phases are included in this, and I don't just mean the ones I mentioned up top. We will talk about the sales process, the demo, the quote, anything that we could have done better, I want to know about so that we can improve as a company. So we do the standard, what went well, what would better, or what could be better about each of those phases as much as you can remember. On our side, it's just one person. It's the implementation manager, whoever you've been working with is the project manager the whole time. And on your side, you can include anyone necessary to answer each of the phases. And they gather all of your answers. We also ask for a letter grade that just allows us to do some averages and stuff. So just like grade school, A minus, B plus, whatever they are about each of the different sections. And then we do the same thing internally without looking at your answers. They actually can't see your answers when we do it with the internal team. So we rate ourselves, same questions, same letter grading scale on the same topics. That allows us to see what we think we could have done better and what maybe you guys didn't notice something that we were like, that was kind of rough and it didn't maybe come across that way, but we know we can do it better and smoother for the next time. So we like to do it internally, and then we sit down and compare them and say, here's what they thought, here's what we thought. We thought we were a little sloppy here. They thought it went pretty well. Because each one of you has done this in the past. You've gone through an implementation. Everyone has different pain points. If your conversion in the past was beautiful, but then you really lacked the support you needed at go live, then that's what you're going to focus on for our implementation. So maybe the conversion was a little rough or something, but you kind of looked over it because that wasn't as big of a deal because you weren't nervous about it from the last time. So everyone comes at this a little differently, and that's why I want to improve every single aspect of what we do. So nothing's off the table. No one person, can't be improved in some fashion with what they do here. All of that to say, what is the successful implementation? It is more than just a conversion. It is going to set your team up to make the most out of whatever CMMS system you use from day one. The system should work very beautiful from the moment you go live. Also, it has to support you into the future. Your relationship with us does not stop at go live. Even once we hand you off to technical support, you are a partner to us. We don't have customers, we have partners. So we want to make sure we're taking care of you the best we absolutely can. Something I've drilled into my team, because it's not necessarily well known. I have a lot of IT software people here. We aren't all biomeds. We certainly have some on staff, but not everyone here has worked in a hospital before. So they don't understand what a biomed department's mission statement is. Your mission statement typically has nothing to do with fixing equipment really good. It has to do with the same thing that your hospital's mission statement is. You're taking care of your patients. You're trying to reduce the patient length of stay. It's all of those things about patients. That is your goal also. You want to fix that equipment and keep it working well because of the patients, not because it's your job and that's what you get paid to do and my boss says so. You guys care. We also care. We have that same goal. I'm not here to just sell you software and make money. I have the same obligation you do to make sure that patients have the best experience possible, the least amount of time in the hospitals, If it's with us, great. If it's with a competitor, that's okay too, because it's about the patients, in my opinion. So that's what I try to instill in my team, and I hope that comes across when we do implementations for customers as they come in, because it's all about the patients at the end of the day. And Jamie, back to you for questions.
Wonderful. Well, Aaron, we had a couple that came through as you were speaking, so I'll just jump right into the first question. What can clients do to their data to prepare for an implementation?
That is a good question. So this comes up frequently in demos, which I do, I don't know, maybe 2/3 or half of our demos here. And it depends, unfortunately, is the answer. So if you have really good cleanup tools in whatever system you're using today, then by all means, feel free to use them as much as you have time to prior to go live, because it's always better to start with good data, which is why we do some data cleanup as well. However, Ames has some very, very nice data cleanup tools. For those data manager lists, all your drop-down lists, we have merge tools there that automatically go back and clean up all your data. We have find replace in both equipment work orders. We have batch cleanup tools for PM schedules, batch open, batch close. So if you need to close out a bunch of old work orders that have been sitting around for years, we have all these tools built into our system. They're all free. So if you don't have those tools today, it actually might be better to wait. It'll be a lot less work for you. So it kind of depends on the tools that you have available, but the conversion can also do some. So if you have a spreadsheet you want to have us do as part of the conversion, typically that's no problem. We just include it, again, no additional fee, as long as it's not something crazy. So if you just say, you know what, we have this, but if you could run this spreadsheet to put this new risk in place, no problem. We do that stuff all the time. So it kind of depends, but typically we have really good tools on our end.
Before I move to the next question, this statement came in from an attendee that I wanted to share more with you and a testimonial to your team and your product. This attendee says the whole Phoenix team, and these are in all caps, the whole Phoenix support team is awesome. They go on to name Laura, Scott, and Bill. So just a little shout out to some members of your team and work that they've done with attendees that we have today. But the next question, what pieces of the implementation process are outsourced?
That is another good question that almost anyone at this company could answer. I hope everyone who works here. None. We don't outsource anything. Every person you talk to is an employee of Phoenix Data Systems. We don't hire any third-party vendors. The only person that works for us overseas lives in India. She's one of our programmers. She works for us only. She's not a contractor. She's just an employee. She used to live in Michigan, where we're headquartered, and she moved back to India. She still works for us. She's the only one. Everyone else is in the US and a full-time employee, and so is she, just not in the US. So we don't outsource. All the skilled staff that we have are trained here and work directly for us.
Wonderful. A couple of more shout outs came in. I'll send those over to your attention. But this attendee would like to know, what happens if we break up? Who owns the database, and do we get a full copy or just subsets and exports?
That is also a very good question. This is something that we see all the time, questions we get asked, again, in demos and RFP processes and all of that. So I kind of assume it's a problem somewhere, but at the end of the day, it's your data. It's not ours. So if you do end up leaving us, we assist in that effort as much as we absolutely can. So if you want a full copy of your database, you get it. There's typically no charge for that unless you want something crazy. If you want us to do a whole bunch of work, there's probably a small fee included there. But if you just want your database, it's your database. We back it up, we zip it up, we send it to you. And if you need to do that 3 times so they can convert it multiple times and get you live, no problem. It literally, that's fine. So you own your database, you get the full copy of it. It's a Microsoft SQL database, so it should be pretty common out there for anyone to work with. And if we host you, you just let us know the dates you need it. We'll get you a backup. And, eventually we hope you come back as you see what we have to offer in the future. But if not, again, we want what's best for you and for your team so that you can help your hospital the best way you can.
scrolling through a couple of these questions here. Here's one. Do you currently support iPad point of use?
We do. So what's neat about AIMS 3, and I don't have it open right now to switch to it, but what's neat about AIMS 3 is it's browser and device agnostic. So as long as you have a connection to 4G or Wi-Fi or whatever it takes to connect, you have the full system at your disposal. It works on phones. There's a lot more scrolling there. It works on iPads or Galaxy tablets, any sort of tablet, and it works, of course, on computers. And it's all the same site. So you have your attachments, you have reporting capabilities, you can even print from there if that device can reach a printer. So you have the full system on a tablet while you're out on the floor.
This one's a little longer. Is there an option for archiving old and or outdated information when converting to AIMS 3? While we need to keep records for 10+ years, sometimes issues from the past keep bad data in our data managers.
We can. So the neat thing about the conversion process and having a proprietary tool that we created is it's supremely flexible. So if we need to, and we can get pretty granular to say if the equipment's retired and older than 10 years, we don't need that at all. If it's still active, we need, but it's been in use for 20 years, we need the full history, let's say, because it's still active. We can be as interesting as you want to be with that. And if you just want to archive some and say, you know what, it's less than 10 years, but we don't want it necessarily in our database, that's no problem also. We can either leave it in your original database, or if you want it in some Excel sheets, that's all stuff that we can handle in the conversion. And then those data manager lists can also be cleaned up to only have records that you need. So if you have some ancient vendors that no longer exist anymore, and we decide to archive those records out, we'll wipe them out of your data manager list so you don't see them ever again. So that's all possible during the conversion.
Does your platform work well with facilities functionalities?
Absolutely. We have some brand new things. So if you're familiar with AIMS.net at all, it was probably lacking a few features that were needed by facilities teams, but AIMS 3, we've corrected those. So in AIMS 3, we have full location hierarchies. We have non-asset scheduled events, PM schedules. So they can PM an area. We do rounding very well. There's a lot of things we've done for our facilities teams in the last few years to really make it better. And then if you want a joint database, combined biomed and facilities all in one, we handle that very well. We can separate that data to a level unseen before with things like assignment profiles, which unless you've seen a demo, you don't know that phrase. So it's just a way to separate data so people only see what's assigned to them.
This attendee would like to know, how about mobile devices? Does AIMS 3 allow scan of device SN and full device profile?
Guess I'm not exactly sure the everything that's being asked with that question. So as far as scanning, I guess it depends on what you're trying to scan. So AIMS works with scanners. One thing we cannot do right now is like if you walk up and scan a barcode on the device, we can't create that piece of equipment and fill in all of the fields. It'd be something I would love to do, but we haven't done it yet. So I guess it's limited. You can scan information into any field in the system, but it doesn't do everything probably that question is asking about. So I would almost want to talk in detail with whoever that was, and we can go through the different scenarios, what it does and doesn't do. But essentially, you can scan data into a field. And then there's other scanning capabilities where if you barcode equipment a certain way, you can actually scan the barcode and have it open up the web request system and fill in the tag number information all at once. We have a couple customers, one in particular that created that function with us, that use that very successfully. Anyone in the hospital can walk up, scan a barcode, it opens up what we call EasyNet, the web request system, fills in all the tag information so they can kind of just put their name in the problem and hit submit. So it works incredibly well. So we do have some scanning. Again, I would want to know the details before I could answer fully yes or no.
Fair enough. This attendee is asking a question in regards to the proprietary conversion tool. They are asking, can it handle data from other softwares?
It can handle SQL data of any capacity. And if it's not in a SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server database, we can typically get it there unless it's out there. We have converted Oracle databases, Fox Pro databases, of course, Excel and Access, we can do those, other Microsoft products. If it's a SQL Anywhere, that's actually one of the harder ones, oddly enough. But as long as we can get it into a SQL Server format, it can convert anything.
I have got 2 more questions teed up for us, unless attendees want to submit some additional ones. This attendee would like to know approximately how many AIMS conversions have you completed?
Oh boy. Wow. Myself personally, over 100, I would imagine, and I've never been a full-time conversion person here. Collectively, over the past dozen years or so I've been doing this, I don't know, many hundreds. Yeah, this tool's been around, I think, since 2000, and I don't know, it's been around like 8 or 9 years, this particular tool, the latest tool. Before then, we were kind of using other people's tools. And since then, it's been many hundreds. I would guess north of 300 that we've converted over the past few years. We do a lot of conversions.
A couple of other questions are coming in. Are you able to pull data directly into Excel or Power BI using Power Query from the server directly?
Yeah, so we have our own dashboarding, of course. We happen to use Tableau instead of Power BI. So if you wanted to kind of launch inside of our software, that's where you would use our licensing for Tableau. If you have your own with Power BI or even Tableau or somebody else, and you don't mind having to go externally to launch the dashboard, which most people don't, then you can certainly use your own, and you can connect it to the database. You can access the data directly, or you can access the views. Even if we host you, we can give you a tunnel into the database so you can still run your own on your side. So yes is the answer. We have many, many customers that do that. They even did that with our old software, to be honest. So if you have access to the database, you can access it any way that you want.
I have an attendee following up on an earlier question. How many AIMS.net to AIMS3 conversions have you completed?
Oh boy, another tough one. That have gone live, I would say probably, that's a tough one. Maybe 25 to 30 that have gone live. How many are in the process, or conversions have we done for people to test? Over 100 easily.
Good. Last one for now. Does AIMS3 interface with ServiceNow, PartSource, Unfor, or Lawson's?
We interface with everybody. Let's just make that simple enough. AIMS3 is written on an API. We use our own API to read and write to our own database. So every single field on every single screen uses the API. That being said, we can interface with anything. We have interfaces with ServiceNow, PartSource, ECRI, Infor, pick a purchasing system, we probably have it. Most of the test equipment companies out there, several of the cybersecurity, Zingbox, Armis, Medigate, and others. Yeah, OneSource, you name it, we've probably either talked to them or have an active interface with them. So what I like to say is you'll never hear us say no. There are other vendors out there that don't like to interface. You'll never hear that come from us.
I love that statement. Aaron, we'll leave it right there. That's a great closing remark. Certainly thank you to you and Daniel for your time today and stepping in for a great presentation on this webinar Wednesday. I do want to encourage all of the attendees, I know there's lots of interest just from the questions that I've seen, visit their website. Go visit Phoenix Data at goaims.com. Always a quick reminder to the attendees, you can obtain that CE certificate that you're looking for by completing the post-webinar survey. That survey is going to come to you via email in 1 hour from right now. You must complete the survey to get the certificate, and you'll be able to download the certificate from your computer or desktop. We'll be back here next week with another webinar. Please go to webinarwednesday.live to see a complete list of upcoming webinars that you can go ahead and register for. And as always, if you have any questions, reach out to us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. All right, Tech Nation, make it a great week. We'll see you next time.